I wanted to tell you the story because this is the type of story that I love to hear. It's kind of a behind the scenes story, and it's the type of story that you rarely hear, maybe because these things are kept private, I don't know. But I wanted to tell you this because it's important, because this character, Tommy, I've known him since 2021. I'll tell you how I met him and how we got to know each other, and obviously since then we've become part of the same team at Craft. And it doesn't matter whether you know him through Craft, you might know him through Craft, or you might know him through iFit. He's a prominent figure in the running world, and he's a character, you know. He's got a long beard, beautifully kind of curled beard, and this kind of like cap and glasses look, and he's also a tall guy with a great physique as well. Is this turning you on? Like, he's an impeccable athlete, and I didn't know what I'm about to tell you about him until I met him. So, I'm in Flagstaff 2021, and it's the middle of COVID. 2020 had been a total write-off. 2021, I wanted to race. I wanted to use the fitness that I'd built up. I wanted to race. So I pinpointed a race in New York, 50-kilometer race where everybody was running about 250. So it would have been there or thereabouts the British record. So I wanted to pinpoint that, and I wanted to spend about 45 days in Flagstaff beforehand at altitude. Now, people go to Flagstaff, and it's become the running Mecca for running camps because it's so famous for Olympic cycles. There's lots of distance runners there. So many people there in 2012. So many people there for Rio in 2016 because they could just go to Rio afterwards. It's a great place, and there's lots of famous places where lots of the runners that you will have heard of have trained in, like Buffalo Park, etc. So many places, and therefore there's lots of runners, lots of running groups, lots of cycling groups, and it's easy to drop down as well from a reasonably high altitude. I think it's about 1,800 meters. It's easy to drop down to about 1,000 meters altitude at Camp Verde, so it's very accessible. I get to a place like that, and I was in Thailand, so I left Rocket, my cat, who's somewhere. I left him, flew to Dubai, Seattle, then down to Phoenix, spent a couple of days in Phoenix. And then what I usually do is very, very simple. I get to a place, I rent a car, I stay in a hotel for a couple of days, and then I find a place to stay for a month or 45 days, as in this case. I got to Flagstaff, and because of COVID, everybody was having these staycations because of travel bans, etc. So everywhere was really expensive, and we're talking like $25,000, $50,000 a month to stay in a regular place. I couldn't justify spending that cost, so I was staying in hotels for the first 10 days, and even they were really expensive. So after about 10 days, I was having the time of my life running, but I was going from hotel to hotel because even those places were booked up, so I couldn't get anywhere for a longer time. So I just put something on Instagram, like having a great time running in all the kind of great places. But if anybody knows somebody in Flagstaff, just let them know if I can rent a room or rent an apartment or, you know, whatever. And after maybe 24 hours, I got a text off Tommy, and I was like, yo, who is this guy? And he basically said, oh yeah, we've got a basement. You can kind of you can take that, and you know, we're runners, etc. So we're kind of quite close to the trail. Come and meet us. And then I went round to his house, and it was such a nice message. I didn't know this person before. I didn't know Tommy before, but obviously I looked then at his Instagram profile to make sure he wasn't, you know, some crazy nutter. And I'd been staying in motels for the last kind of 10 days, and you know, as a Brit, motels are the place that you go to if you want. Literally, your door is on the Route 66 or on the next motorway to go kind of north, south, east or west. Very easy. So it's very easy to get murdered, like you see in the films, and then somebody kind of disappears into thin air. So that's the kind of. So I wanted to check this person out. So I checked him out, and then I saw, like from his pictures, what he'd gone through in the last 12 months. And maybe even more than that. And I didn't know where he was up to on his recovery, but it was pretty, check out his Instagram. It's pretty graphic in terms of, he thought he had COVID, and then it was a rare form of lung cancer. Very small chances of survival. And he'd been through hell, and his family had been through hell, and they thought the odds were stacked against him. They were going to lose him. And so I went round to his house to meet him. He was still on oxygen at this time. And he looked really weak. He's tall, and he's a great figure. like a great character to look at, you know, long beard, the sunglasses, the hat, etc. Really nice smile, really friendly eyes. But he's a tall guy, and he was really, really skinny and weak, and kind of like, you know, struggled climbing the stairs and stuff like that. So what hit me immediately was, this guy wants to give me his basement, but he's still weak. He's still so weak that he's not able to kind of like, you know, he's not able to kind of maybe be making the right decisions or whatever. So I kind of like, it was a strange situation because I really needed somewhere to stay, but at the same point, it felt like, well, yeah, this is a really lovely message that I've received from a stranger at that point, but it's another runner. And so, you know, I met him, and then I met his wife very briefly, and his wife, Steph, is so lovely, and I got to know them over the next 30, 40 days, and they were so lovely to me, and they had 3 children. She must have been thinking, this is the last thing we need right now after what we've been through for the last 12 months. But the fact that she kind of opened the door as well and was able to kind of invite me to things, and so generous and kind, really hit me at a time when they didn't know that, but I actually really needed that at the time. I was kind of, you know, we were all a little bit lost at the time, but I was thinking, what does the future hold? How long is COVID going to go on for? Can I actually continue being a professional athlete, or do I need... I was at a crossroads with so many things, and I'd left my cat in Thailand with my friend, and so I was also kind of really anxious about that. And they were just so welcoming, and the level of kind of kindness really hit me. And there was no need for him to message me like that. He was going through hell and had not kind of seen the light at the end of the tunnel, but wasn't there yet. And he didn't need to do that. His family didn't need to do that. And they had, as I said, 3 children. Children were lovely. They would kind of go off into the woods and then bring something back, like a small snake or a hedgehog or a lizard or something like that, and get me to hold it. And I remember the smallest kind of giving me a snake. I won't mention names, but giving me a snake to hold. And I was like, gee, you know, in the UK, we don't have snakes. We have dogs and cats. And I was just thinking, this thing is gonna bite me and is gonna kill me. But you know, it was really funny how these kids would have the perfect childhood and perfect upbringing, and you could see that was due to their parents and the way that they kind of, where they lived. And it was such a lovely experience for me to be there, and completely changed what I felt about Flagstaff after being there in hotels, going from hotel to motel and all this kind of stuff, and then being welcomed in by this family. And Tommy in the condition, luckily now, and we spent a lot of time since at various places in France and Portugal and different training camps, he is exactly what you see, and he is that kind. And that's the, you know, character for me is who you are when nobody's looking. And for me, nobody was looking at that situation. He didn't need to do that. They didn't need to do that as a family, him and Steph. But they welcomed me into their house, and for that I'll be eternally grateful. And I can't speak highly enough about him. And every situation that I've seen him in since, he's always been exactly as you see. So I felt like I should say that, because, you know, sometimes you kind of see somebody and you kind of, you know, they're elevated to a certain status, have a certain platform, and you think, is this just a show or whatever? Tommy's the real deal, and so is Steph. And they are really genuinely beautiful human beings.